Okay, so we should be a go on the live stream at this point.
Okay, at bookworm.fm. I I don't see the live stream
There should be
showing up
there should be a
even in the
post.
live section. Like there's no coming up on the YouTube one
All right,
that I see.
hold on. I will send you the link to where I'm looking at it.
Okay.
In the chat. Live stream will get messed up.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Let's see if
Oh,
that
Patreon, right. Okay.
did that solve your problem.
Yes. Okay, I think. Let's see. Now I have to go to this on YouTube though in order to see the chat. There it is. Shell Johnson. Oh, the Kindle version isn't available until September. Interesting. Okay, so yeah, I forgot for some reason that the Bookworm live recordings are private, which means Ecamm probably won't. Well, the part that Ecamm is great at with like making it easy to schedule live events won't won't work for private stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Yeah.
So okay, so the where we were going is my next book. So the book after your book, I've got I've
Yes.
got options for you. Would you like
All right.
to hear those options?
I'll take door number 3, please.
Okay. You might not want to say that until you know what I spit out.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So there's three different ones that rise to the top of my list right now. There's one called Published, and it's by Chandler Bolt, which I've never heard of Chandler Bolt before. I don't know if you've ever heard of Chandler Bolt.
I signed up for a Chandler Bolt webinar last week.
Awesome.
Didn't go, but he is the person behind selfpublishing.com.
Okay. So the proven path from blank page to 10,000 copies sold. So um, it's a book from 2016. I think it'd be interesting. Uh,
Whoa, that's weird that it's that old.
yeah. So that's one. Number two is Dr. Benjamin Hardy has another book coming out that basically comes out tomorrow, The Science of Scaling. So that's number two.
Science of Scaling.
Yeah,
Let me pull
it's
that one up.
Benjamin Hardy and Blake Erickson and Tony Robbins does the forward.
That's why I heard of this. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so that's option two, and then door number three. But this one's a long one, Mike. This one is 368 pages. I don't know if it's actually 368 or not, but it's called The New Emotional Intelligence by Travis Bradberry. And it just
Hmm.
came out in May of 25. And I think what I know your love for emotional intelligence. I think the discussion for that one could be fun. So those are your three options.
Oh my goodness.
I'm good with any of
So
them.
if we do this one, just know that I am going to destroy this book. I can tell you right now, just by looking at the cover. This guy claims to be the world's number one expert on increasing emotional intelligence. And then on the front cover, they say the first emotional intelligence test in 20 years.
Hmm.
Well, apparently they've never come across ours, which has been used 20 million times. So
Okay. So the question I have for you is, do you feel like that kind of a book, or would you rather do like the scaling one, or would you rather do the writing, the publishing one?
let's hold on the emotional intelligence one.
Good. Too long.
I've it's too long anyways, and yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
um, okay, and then the the published one. Um, I I want to look at this one before we would pick this.
Okay.
I kind of think this is going to be there'll be discussion of some technological tools to self-publish your book. Probably the author's company, and if it's written 2016, do those even exist anymore? Um, yeah, I think I need to dig into that one a little bit more. The science of scaling, definitely interested in that one as well. So let's do that one.
Okay. Do you want more options, or are you happy with science of scaling?
No, I'm happy with that one. I actually saw that come across some feed somewhere, and a little quote by Tony Robbins. I didn't realize that he was the one who did the forward for this. Apparently, Dr. Benjamin Hardy has gone from Dan, um, what's the guy's name? Dan
Dan
Sullivan,
Sullivan. Yeah.
as his co-author guru to Tony Robbins.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Um, I've got two more. So
You do? Okay,
I
well, let's hear him, I
okay. So
guess.
I got the next one will be on character, and it's
Mm.
by General Stanley McChrystal. And choices that define a life, and that one came out in May of 25, so that's fairly new. And then this one's an older one, but it was revised. I don't know where. I don't remember when. But it's called Multipliers: How the Best Leaders Make Everyone Smarter by
Oh, Liz
Liz
Wiseman.
Wiseman. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that is definitely an older one. Co-authored by Greg McKeown, I believe, before Essentialism.
It doesn't list it on this one, so I don't know if they revised and updated version she dropped Mickey on or not. But Stephen Covey does the, but it's huge too. It's 384. Like Multipliers is a big one.
Yeah, let's hold off on that one. I think the science of scaling is looks like it's a relevant topic, and it is a brand new book. It's the
Yeah.
number one new release
Yes.
in motivational management and leadership.
Yep. All right.
So it's popular. Maybe we'll get a little boost from that.
I feel like I have to make up for the book that we're going to talk about today because this was an acquired taste. Let's just say that. I don't doubt that there is a section of the bookworm audience that was like, "This book was terrible. I wish we didn't have to read this one."
Yeah, so yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
um there are certain recommendations that come in um from certain people, and you have to recognize their, like, we all have our biases, right?
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
So um I have to admit that I went into this one a little bit skeptical. um I think it'll be a good conversation. So yeah,
I think so
we
too.
can.
What I'll tell you at the front, I'll tell you at the front, and anybody who's listening on the live stream right now, I'll tell you at the front. Um, I would not pick a book like this again, right? Like, because it's like I think this book was really interesting for me, who's somebody
Yeah.
who's like wants to get nerdy about AI, but like for a general audience that doesn't care
Yeah.
about getting nerdy for AI, yeah, I don't think so. I don't think I'd pick a book like this again. But we'll get there. Style and rating. So.
Right.
All right, that's all I have for administration.
All right. I guess we could get rolling then. I got to get audio hijack up. Oh, and apparently there's an update. So give me a moment.
No problem.
All right. There's audio hijack. There's the mind map. There's the notes. There's the chat. All right. I think I'm good if you're good.
Okay. Do you have any or what's our tagline again? Remind me what the tagline is. Let's
For
put.
what?
Remember, Toby told us to say it the same way every time. So,
Oh, it's let's put insert book title on the shelf.
yep.
What's next, other person?
Okay. So that'll come after style and rating.
Yep.
Cool. I just want to make sure I get it right.
Nice.
All right. Cool. Okay. And then I'm gonna do the pro show promo, and you'll do recommend a book at the very end.
Let's see. So Gap Books, you do that. Yeah, that works.
I mean, if you want to do that every time, I don't care. Um, it's more just a
No,
matter of
let's just,
we talked about uh, we talked
yeah,
about having
so,
the whoever's book it is do the promo, and then the other person does the recommend a book
yep.
thing and close us out.
Okay, so let's just make these bullets tight though.
That's what I wanted to do
Um,
too. So good.
why can't I think now?
Uh,
Now that
wa-
we're live
longer
streaming, I can't think.
longer feed or longer show.
Oh yeah, you get a longer ad-free pro show
Mm-hmm.
bootleg released right after recording.
The live stream.
About 2 weeks early. Live stream.
Wallpaper.
$7 a month. Patreon.com/bookwormfm. Okie dokie.
Cool. And now I think we're ready to push go.
All right. I need a note card and a non-noisy pen. Okay, we're good. Ready to count down?
I am ready when you are.
Okie dokie. 3, 2, 1.
Mike, I had an interesting week. Would you like to hear about it?
I would. That's why we're here.
Okay, so we went to family camp. Have you ever been to family camp before, Mike?
Long time ago. I think when I was in middle school,
Okay.
went to family camp. We've talked about doing a family camp at our church for years, but have not had one recently. So,
Well, we had friends invite us to go to family camp with them and a couple other families. We thought it'd be really fun. We tried to get into it last year, couldn't get into it last year. So we thought we would try again this year. We ended up, all of our families got into it this year. Now, this camp is in essentially the middle of nowhere, Western Colorado. So you go through like up over the mountains, you go up over the mountains again. And when I say up over the mountains, I don't mean like, oh, just like a tiny little drive like I'm used to from Pennsylvania. I mean like switchbacks, winding, half hour up, half hour down, many miles. Hopefully you don't get stuck behind a big trailer or anything that's going to even slow you down further. So we go up over multiple mountains. We're in the middle of nowhere, Western Colorado. You turn left onto a packed dirt road, and then you lose signal, and you don't get signal back until you reach that same spot when you're done in the valley, right? So, so the point of our conversation here is my disconnected and tech-free week. It is not about family camp. It is more about the disconnected and tech-free week. Long story short, which I'll give you more details as you want and or are interested in them.
well, let me
Okay.
just ask right now, how was the week for you?
Mm-hmm. So I loved
So,
it. I wish, like, I don't like that I'm back and I have to like check email and that
yeah,
people can text me, and like I don't like it at all. Like I wish I was back in there where I could be like, sorry, I
sure.
just couldn't get it. I couldn't see it. I couldn't get it. I didn't have service, didn't have Wi-Fi, didn't have anything. I loved every second of it, and
Yeah.
I wish I could go back to tech-free world.
Then the second question is, how did your family like it?
My family, I mean, didn't notice it at all because my boys, I mean, they barely interact with the internet or anything like that. They like to watch, shows and stuff, but they don't watch enough of them that it actually had an impact on their life. So they were
Okay.
fine. And then the other thing is like there was so much to do that we were moving and doing stuff from not from the time we woke up, but from shortly after we woke up until it was time for bed. So you were busy. I think that might have been part of the reason why I liked it, is because we intentionally replaced other things for activity and being outside and doing those things. And I think that is a good lifestyle for me. I think sitting and, being online and, like that kind of stuff kind of, I don't know if I realized how much it eats at me until
Mm,
I take a week and I don't do it at all. For like the
sure.
only thing I did, right? And here you go. I mean, come on, I'm ready for it. The only thing I did on a device for the entire week was read the bookworm book because I don't read paper books. You know this. I don't read paper books. So the only thing I did was read the bookworm book, and it was glorious. It was absolutely glorious.
Of all the things that could potentially negate a truly tech-free week, reading the book for Bookworm, not the one I would have picked.
Yep. That was the thing, is that was the only thing I did online. Because that was really the only thing I could do. Like I had downloaded the book and I had, my note taking app and all that stuff. And that was the only thing I did on a digital device the entire week. And it was awesome. It was awesome. What's weird is I didn't really like, maybe the first day and a half, you have that like phantom phone syndrome, or, you reach down and you're like, wait, it doesn't work. It's basically like a light up brick. It doesn't connect to anything, right? Like there's really nothing I can do on this thing. So I just would throw it back on the counter. And that happened like a day or two. And then I noticed that like when we drove out of the valley and like signal happened again, and it was on my watch, like my watch started bzz, 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 and I was like, oh, this is terrible, right? Like it was so nice. Like nobody bothered me. Nobody did it. And now I'm getting these buzzes. And I feel really bad about this because I feel like a curmudgeon, because it was like my family would send me a text or my friends would be texting, but I still very much felt like, this is not good. I wish we could go back into the valley and have the excuse of there's no signal, there's no connection. We don't need any of this.
Yeah, that is true. We don't need any of this. Um, what was the thing that you and or your family enjoyed the most, like a specific activity that you did at
Yeah.
family camp while you did not have access to your technology?
So the place we were at had what they call live water. So like there was a river that bordered the one side of the facility, and it had like a good mix of pretty active flowing water, and then these little pools that you could play in, and the kids could goof around in. Well, right up on the hill above that active live water, that river, was like picnic tables and fire pits and things like that. So you could sit up there while the kids were playing down in the water, and the kids had a great time. The fishing was actually really good. I don't know if you like to fish or not, but I'm not a huge fisherman. I don't really care to fish that much. My son loves it. I mean, he could spend all the hours of the day on fishing, right? I mean, he has that bug. But there was like so much for them to do, and then we could sit up by the fire or be just goofing around in the water. That was probably one of the best things that we do. But we love to get outside and like walk streams and walk rivers and look under rocks and try to catch crawfish and things like that. So the boys had a great time with that, and Katie and I had a great time watching them goof around and do that kind of stuff. So I'm gonna turn
Did
one.
did you
Okay.
happen to notice anybody else at the family camp who you could just tell like they were struggling?
The how do I say this? The like teenage mids, right? Like
Yeah.
they, I think, had like a little bit of a harder time than everybody else. But even there, I mean, a lot of them had been there before. Like this was our first time there, but a lot of them had been there before. So I think they knew what they were getting into. Like so
Okay.
they
They
weren't
knew
like,
what to expect.
yeah. Yeah, so
Yeah.
to my knowledge, no one had a breakdown. No one lost their mind. I do have a friend that was there, and he had to do business. And if you're not watching the live stream, everybody, I air quoted business. So he would get up in the mornings and he would drive down to the part of the road where you got service, and he would do his business, and then he would drive back to the camp. So I would say he was probably the one that had the hardest time, but that was because he kept saying he had to stay connected, stay connected, stay connected. So now my question for you is, how do you think you would do on a week like that?
Mm, that is a good question. So I think, well, are we talking tech free or internet free? Because those are two very different things
Okay.
for me.
so it was internet free, but you could have your technology. Like I said, I had my iPad and
Okay,
my phone. Like I could have used them to do whatever. I just read books and took notes.
gotcha. I think internet free, I would be fine. It would take a little bit of an adjustment because I just the nature of my independent creator business has leaned more and more towards being connected and making things and publishing them consistently all the different places. So it would be difficult, I think, for my brain to disconnect from that. Like if I was there on a Monday, it'd be like, I need to log on and send the newsletter.
Yep. Yep.
Even if theoretically I was able to line all that stuff up ahead of time, that would still go off in my brain. Um, the tech free thing, that's the one that would really, I think, kind of drive me crazy because I rely on my Obsidian based journaling system so much.
Mm-hmm.
So my morning routine is firmly ingrained where I use the chronological Bible reading plan to show me the chapters that I should be reading. I always read them in my physical Bible, so I'm not reading them on my phone, but I'm getting the tasks anyways. And then I do all my journaling at the end of the day with the daily questions and
Mm-hmm.
the gratitude and things like that. That's basically all I do at the end of the day. Well, actually, I do Duolingo also, so that actually is internet. Uh, that it would require the internet connection, so that would be weird to break that 2022 day
Yep.
streak.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
But I think that would be that would be okay slash worth it. But the journaling thing, that would be tough.
Yeah.
Not that I couldn't pull out a piece of paper and write this stuff down, but I rely on that information so much when I do my personal retreats
Yeah.
that that would freak me out a little bit, I think.
Yeah. I highly recommend you give it a shot in one of your personal retreats, in one of your trips up to your little cabins, that you give a shot where you say, okay, I'm going to use technology as little as possible, and I'm intentionally going to turn off the internet. I found that like me turning it off versus it literally not being there, like I had no choice. Like there was no like I literally had a light up brick. Like that's all I had, right? So that helped me because it was like, oh, okay. And I'm very like black and white when it comes to certain things. So I was like, oh, okay. I just can't do it. Like there's no willpower needed. It's just no, this isn't going to happen for the week unless I get in the car and I drive 20 minutes and figure out where the service is and all of that stuff. So, but yeah, I can see where you're coming from with your journaling because you have quite the elaborate automated reminder and or like notification is not the right word, but what is like prompting system, right? So I can
Yep.
see where you're coming from. Every time you every time you get on me about reading digital books, I'm now going to say, but Mike, you could journal in paper and pen and you don't do that either. So I think that's going to be my comeback to you now. It's taken us what,
Well,
a year and a
these
half.
are totally not the same
They are
thing.
totally the same thing.
Totally not
They
the
are
same
100%
thing.
the same thing.
No, 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 no. You don't lose out on the value of journaling by doing it digitally.
Yeah.
The argument could be made for morning pages, but that's very specific and I have no interest in that.
The fact that you're
But
not scribbling on a piece of wood that's been chopped up and turned into a pulp paper mixture, yeah, you're just losing out, Mike. Your journaling's, I mean, you may as well not even do it. I mean, you may as well just stop.
okay, dude, this is the next book we should do for Bookworm. We should do one of those Marianne Wolf
I
books,
know.
like the Proust and the Squid.
I,
See if we can't get you to eschew the digital book reading once and for all.
I actually can't believe you haven't tried to get me to read a Marianne Wolf book like so far in a Gap book or something like that. Like I am kind of surprised you've left me off the hook for as long as you have instead of peer pressuring me into
Yeah.
one of those.
Well, I can't remember if we did Reader Come Home for Bookworm or not. I know we talked to her for Focused, but I think that was probably a Bookworm book, but I can't recall. And then I just don't think about it until we record and then yeah,
Okay.
slips my mind. So you're off the hook.
According to the very quick internet search I did for Reader Come Home, we have not done it for Bookworm. You have not done it for Bookworm. Now, the question I
Mm,
have for you is, do you want me to adjust my next book and make it read or come home.
No, you don't have to change your book to something that hopefully is going to show you the error of your ways. I mean,
But
that's my job.
I'm willing to learn. Like I am willing to do that, Mike.
Yeah. I'm not sure which one to do either. Like Reader Come Home is the one that I read, and that was pretty good, but The Proust and the Squid is the one that everybody refers to. So I'd kind of like to read that one. Just
What's it called?
I'll probably The Proust and the Squid.
The Proust.
I will I'm sure pick that one before too long.
Okay.
So yeah, don't worry about it.
Okay. I'll let it ride, and I'll keep reading my digital books and loving my life.
All right,
we are gonna have the conversation about liquid text at some point, because I am a huge fan of note taking in liquid text, but that's not for today. It's not for today's pro show.
That is the opposite of the Tech Free Week.
What is liquid text?
Liquid text.
Yes. Yep. It is 100% digital and wonderful and glorious, and I can use my little pen, and my brain is engaged. It's a good time.
Nice.
It's a good time.
All right. Shall we start the main show?
Let's do it. All right, Mike, welcome back. Are you ready to talk about artificial intelligence, large language models, prediction, generation, all of the things related to technology?
To be honest, I'm not sure.
I'm not either. I was doing the outline for this one, and I was like, well, do we want to go chapter by chapter, or do we think there's a better way to have this conversation? And
I think we gotta, but yeah.
Yeah, I think we're gonna go chapter by chapter. But before we get there, let's go into follow up. So I'll start with my follow up items. I was to brainstorm and create a mastermind group. I'm going to give myself a yellow on this one. My yellow is because I sent an email to an individual that I would like to be in the mastermind group, and this individual is key. So I really want this individual to be in this group. If he's not, then I don't know what happens to the group. Like, I don't know if I am going to push the group forward without this individual in it, because I think he and I would partner really well and do that really well. So he got back to me. I need to schedule, and we need to think about it, and we kind of need to talk about what the details of it would look like. And then he and I think, will figure out if there's a bigger group and what the bigger group looks like and how that bigger group works. So I'm going to give myself a yellow on this. So the group is not fully formed yet. There's nothing on the calendar in terms of us meeting, but the preparatory work is underway. The next thing I had was what scares me and excites me, and then how can I develop a voluntary force function for this thing. And I did not do this at all. I didn't even think about this once. So I'm letting this one go. I'm not going to come back to this one. I'm just going to let it fly away and be totally okay with that. The last one was do Pat's personal mission statement activity, which I have done. I had done that one prior to the episode where we talked about lean learning. So that one's completely done, and I'm big solid green on that one. And I feel really good about that. So those are my follow-up items. Mike, you had 4. Would you like to talk us through those?
I did, and no, I would not like to talk you through those. So let's go to the book.
Okay, moving on.
No, just kidding.
I know.
So what about my work gives me energy? I didn't really think about this, but I think I have an answer to this anyways.
Okay.
The thing about my work that gives me energy is making connections with other people and authentically helping them. So the live streams that I've been doing, and really anything connected to the library, that is very energizing and life-giving to me. I get actually, there's a downside or a shadow side to this as well, because if there's an event on the library calendar and nobody shows up, I'll get super depressed.
Yeah, I can see that. I would too.
Which honestly doesn't happen anymore, but it definitely did at the beginning. And it was enough for me to be like, I don't want to do this, and I just wouldn't schedule things for months, which is totally the wrong approach to that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that definitely gives me energy. And then I recognize that large editing projects are the things that I tend to procrastinate on. I'm good at them. Like I do these modules for Screencasts Online every month or so, and they're like 40-minute screencasts walking through, like the last one I did was on Ecamm Live. I think I shared that story last time, how it got released actually the day I was at Macstock
Hmm.
talking to the Ecamm people, and they found it and they're like, "Hey, your tutorial is great." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
um, but that when I'm working on those, it always feels like a huge, heavy lift. So I guess that's evidence that I should delegate as much video editing as I can.
Hmm.
The one I did succeed on was sharing my work on social media. I don't think I very clearly defined this though. Um, I am basically, I'll talk through my approach to this, and it's going to be sloppy because I haven't really codified this anywhere. But in my mind, anyways, it kind of connects. So the thing that I'm really working backwards from is I'm trying to get to the point where I am releasing a new edited YouTube video every week.
Okay.
Okay. So working backwards, I need topics for all of those videos.
Okay.
I need to figure out what I'm going to say about those topics, and I need to script those, record them, hand them off to the editor, add the screencast, all the post-production stuff that takes far longer than I want it to. But basically, if I start with those topics, that's really like the first bottleneck is figuring out what are the next 6 YouTube videos gonna look like. And then what I've been doing from there is like, well, I have to figure this stuff out anyways. What I'll do is I will actually just take that topic and I'll write about it for the newsletter, because that will get me 60% of the way there to making the video
Hmm.
script. And once I
Hmm.
have some momentum, then I can, take it and, so there's consistency, I feel like, in the messaging for the first time, which even that is a net win.
Yeah.
Uh, and then even further back from that, the live streams that I've been experimenting with on Wednesdays for Practical PKM, those are a way for me to kind of talk through things before I know what I really want to say in the newsletter. So I've done some on, I think the last one I did was on the Bases plugin, and I was talking through the on this day feature thing that I figured out for my daily note, and being able to do that live, even though it's not truly live like this, where people can talk back to you,
Hmm.
but they can chime in via the comments, and then you can respond that way. It helps me kind of explore the topic in a different way, and then it helps me figure out kind of the direction that I want to go. So I start with that topic, and then it's like, where do I want to go from this? Live stream about it. That'll give me a direction. From there, write about it. That'll give me some momentum, and then finish it by making the video script.
Nice.
Once I do all that, then it's really just take pieces of this and share it on social media. The live stream is already on social media, so I'm sharing. I'm live now. Come hang out, and I've been getting like consistently 20 people at a time in those live streams, which I'm pretty happy with. And then they stick around on the YouTube channel and they accumulate views and watch time and stuff like that. So it's a win-win, I feel like, for the channel. Um, I probably could do a little bit better job of like taking every bit of the things that I figure out and making sure all of them get scheduled for social media. That's the last part of this for me, I think. And that I've just been too busy to really codify, but that's going to happen through Typefully. And yeah, I have a clear path forward for that. Just need a little bit of time to make it happen. The other two that I had, which I failed miserably on, check out the companion course. I did not do this. Toby did this. He told me it was free. And once I heard a little bit about what it was, I kind of feel like my curiosity was satisfied.
Okay. Okay.
I didn't need to go look at it. And then the mastermind groups for the library. This is definitely something I want to do at some point, but it is not something that I should be worrying about right now. So just basically put that on the back burner.
Nice. Nice. So what would you, I mean, overall, green, yellow, red?
Um, I think the first one is yellow. The second, so what about my work gives me energy? The second one, sharing the work on social media. I'm willing to give myself a green, even though it's not completely done. I feel like,
Yeah,
yeah. And then the other two are red.
a red. But actively red. Like you made a decision to make those red.
Intentionally read. Yes.
Intentionally read. There you go. Right. Actively, intentionally. Yep. That's great. Alrighty. Are we ready to get into today's book as best as we can?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So our book today is called AI Snake Oil: What Artificial Intelligence Can Do, What It Can't, and How to Tell the Difference. The book is authored by Arvind Narayanan. I knew I was going to get it wrong. Narayanan. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Sure.
Mike shook his head, and then Sayash Kapoor. So Arvind, I'm really sorry that I messed your name up if you listen to this. Where they are both at Princeton. So Arvind is a faculty member at Princeton. He's a computer science professor. He runs a lab that is, he's the director of the Center for Information Technology Policy. So that actually kind of makes sense in terms of the book. If you read about the book, or if you read the book, or if you've already read the book, that would actually kind of make a ton of sense. And then Sayash is a computer science PhD candidate. So he's almost got his doctorate. He works in the Center for Information Technology Policy. He kind of co-authored this out of his work. Mike, do you remember? Sayash is the one who worked at Facebook, right? Before he came back to grad school, if I'm remembering correctly.
To be honest, I don't know, and I don't think it really matters except for the one section where they talk about AI with social media.
Yeah.
But
yeah, the only reason I brought it up was because it kind of brings a little bit of the level of he was in a world that was using this professionally, or in the workplace kind of setting, which I think adds some flavor to it. So the book's got an introduction, which they count as chapter 1, and then 8 chapters after that. It's got quite a bit of footnotes and book notes and end notes associated with it, where they reference different studies and different things. The first chapter, Mike, if you're ready to roll into it, it's just called Introduction, and I think
let's real quick on the format of the book. I think this is kind of weird because it's 290 pages before you get to the end stuff.
Yeah, something like that.
There's a ton of references, as you mentioned. There's like 60 some citations in each chapter. That last citation section in the book is crazy long, which makes it actually kind of hard to find what you're looking for. So there's a ton of research, basically, or a ton of sources that have gone into this book. It's very long, though, and if you take out the introduction, there are really 7 different chapters. I feel like it's laid out kind of weird.
Oh, yeah, I would agree with you.
And I don't think that does the book any favors at the beginning. And I think you probably could break it down into different sections and have different chapters. I'm not necessarily sure that's the right approach either. The chapters themselves do have like a bunch of sub chapters that are listed. So if you want to view the chapters in here kind of as sections, I feel like you could do that. But yeah, it's kind of strange the way that this book is laid out.
It reads a lot like academics wrote it, which, as we're seeing this unroll, maybe that's why I was kind of like, oh, this makes total sense to me. I kind of understand where they're going. I think you're right in saying that, like, the 7 legitimate chapters, introduction, but then the 7 other chapters, they're not mapped out. We've read books before where it's like, here are this part 1, it's got 3 chapters underneath it. Here's part 2, it's got 3 chapters underneath it. Here's part 3, it's got 3 chapters underneath it. And then there's a thread that ties part 1, part 2, and part 3 together. That really doesn't exist in this book. I was looking real quick to see who the publisher was. So it's Princeton University Press. So this is an academic book written for academics. It's like it's got academia written all through it. And what I'll say is, I think that's why you had said about like each chapter kind of being standalone and having a bunch of references. That's a very academic style of writing. I'm going to write this chapter and it's kind of a self-contained idea. And then we'll write this chapter and it's kind of a self-contained idea. And I've read a bunch of books before where you'll solicit different authors to write each of those chapters. So you go out and you get the expert to write that chapter, and you get the expert to write that chapter, and then there's an editorial team that'll write a front matter and a back matter to kind of try to tie everything together. It just so happens in this book they both wrote the entire thing. They
Sure.
didn't farm out any of the chapters or get support for any of the chapters. The one last thing I thought would be interesting to talk about before we get into the introduction is this was listed as one of Nature's top 10 books in 2024. They've got a fairly significant Substack associated with this. So they've gained some pretty decent popularity in the AI space. I would say in the more public policy and technical side of the AI space, as opposed to the general, your grandma, your brother, your dad, who is like, I just kind of want to know what's going on with AI. I feel like I
Hmm.
should make a disclaimer before we go any further. I'm very into AI. I've encouraged us for Bookworm to read Kevin Kelly's book about technologies, and now we're reading this AI book. So if you really, really hated this book and you were like, this book was terrible and I did not like any bit of it, or if you listen to us talk about it and you think, nope, that's good, it's all on me. Don't put any of it on Mike. It's all on me, and
Cory gets all the blame and the credit.
I get all the blame. Like, so just, yeah, no, you'll see where we're going with this. So let's get into
Dude, you're
the.
foreshadowing your rating, I
Oh,
feel a ton right now.
I'm totally foreshadowing my rating. Like, totally 100%. The question, Mike,
Let
is
me just
how
share
low?
one other thing about the cover here. So that the subtitle is what artificial intelligence can do, what it can't, and how to tell the difference. And AI is changing so quickly. This is the thing that made me leery of this. I feel like um, even if it was able to deliver on those promises entirely, it's a very short
Hmm.
shelf life.
Yeah.
Um, but that was just my first impressions going into the book before we get into the discussion of it chapter by chapter.
Okay. All right. So let's go to the introduction. In the introduction, they've got a couple different goals here that are then going to bleed through to the rest of the book. One of them is they're going to make a distinction between generative AI and predictive AI, and I'll say it, at the very start. They're for generative AI. They are very against predictive AI. Then they introduced this idea of snake oil. And just like in the old West, where people would try to sell you this tonic will save everything and it'll make you better and it'll heal all the diseases and all that stuff, they're saying that predictive AI is snake oil at this point. This is where I think the title of their book is a little bit not disingenuous, because I don't think they were doing it intentionally, but I would have wanted them to be more specific and to say like predictive AI snake oil, because they're very clear that like generative AI and chatbots and some of these things are very valuable, and image generation, like they're doing a fine job. There's really nothing wrong with those. They're doing what people say they're going to do. But when you get into the predictive side, they don't have the evidence for it. So let's get a little bit more detailed. And basically, they say snake oil is something that doesn't do what it's advertised to do. Or it can't possibly do what it's advertised to do. So that's why they've labeled the book, or they've titled the book Snake Oils, because they say predictive AI can't do what people are saying it can do. I'll stop here, Mike, and let you give us some thoughts on the introduction.
Yeah, well, I think that's true, and the next couple chapters are on predictive AI. You can tell at this point in the book that really they've got a
Oh,
vendetta
yeah.
against predictive AI, which
100%.
I wouldn't say is unfounded. It's just not necessarily the approach that I would have picked for a book that I wanted to read about AI. Um, Maybe that's because I have more than a absolute beginner level understanding of this stuff. Like we have read some of those books. The one that I continue to point people to is Co-Intelligence by Ethan Malik.
Great
I
book.
feel like that's a great discussion about AI in general, but I don't think he really even addressed predictive AI very specifically in that book. It was more about AI in general. This one takes the opposite approach. It's going to, consider each type of AI under the microscope. So very different feel. I feel also that the formatting slash editing of this book, again, you mentioned it's a very academic book. I don't really like academic books,
Okay.
I have discovered.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons I don't like the academic books is that I feel there's a lot of focus on what they're saying and not as much focus on how they're saying it. So right away in this section, like the big argument they're laying out here are the three questions for determining whether describing something as AI is appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Not all three of these are actually shared as questions.
Okay.
The third one is a statement.
I didn't realize that when I
and
read
when
it,
I'm
but yes. Yeah.
and when I'm putting together the mind map for this, I'm like, wait, I have to rewrite this as a question because it's the three questions, and I'm gonna go back and reference this later. Like most people, they're just gonna keep cranking through the words that keep appearing before their eyeballs. But I was like, wait, no, that's wrong.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So little things like that definitely bugged me. Um, yeah, I don't know what else to really say about the introduction section. I think the questions are actually helpful. The first one, does the task require creative effort or training for a human to perform? The second one is, was the behavior of the system directly specified in code by the developer, or did it indirectly emerge? And the third one, does the system make decisions more or less autonomously and possess some degree of flexibility and adaptability to the environment? And that's the one where
Mm-hmm.
they just said it, as a statement.
Yeah.
Feels like something if you had an editor at a, you know, I can't even think of the big publishers now. Penguin,
Yeah.
whatever, they would have been like, no, this doesn't make sense. Let's clean this up a little bit.
Yep.
And it's not that big a deal, but it was, a little bit of friction for
Yeah.
me as I'm reading it and priming the pump, I guess, for how I'm going to engage with the rest of the chapters. But not all AI is snake oil. They mentioned it at the beginning, and I think you'll definitely get that as we work through the rest of this. But they're definitely going to lead with guns ablazing
Mm-hmm.
in chapters 2 and 3.
Absolutely. So you got it. One of the things is their way to try to define what AI is. And even there, they say if you can answer yes to those three questions, then it might be AI. They still don't even come out as strong and say like then it is AI. They just say, "Oh, it maybe is AI." Like it's in the wheelhouse of
Yeah.
possibly being AI. One of the things that I liked about this, you know me at this point, tables and graphs make me happy. So they throw a table out there, the landscape of AI, snake oil, hype, and harms. They've got on the x-axis benign to harmful, and then on the y-axis works up to snake oil. And they throw different ideas or different ways that AI is being used. So for instance, like autocomplete. They would say autocomplete is fairly benign and it works. We can do that pretty well at this point. And you think about that, well, that's been around since at least the T9 cell phone days, right? Where it was trying to autocomplete your words. Then they go the whole way up to cheating detection, video interviews and hiring, and criminal risk detection. And they say that's basically really harmful and it's snake oil, that it doesn't work at all and it really has a negative consequence. So they do that. I think they do a good job outlining who the book is for. They throw these three different categories. You want to get a sense of what's going on. That's one category. You need to make decisions about AI in your workplace. That's another category. You may be interested in AI because you want to take action against the harms. So that's more of a proactive or activist kind of standpoint. I honestly think that this is why I wanted to read this book, is because I'm in that second camp, that I need to make some decisions about AI at the university and in life and think about that from that perspective. So I'm not going to tell you that I love this book, but I'm going to tell you that I think this book was valuable for me, bigger picture, that it allowed me to see a different part of thinking about AI that I don't often get everywhere else. I get AI is going to ruin education and AI is going to do this and AI is going to do that. And they were a more tempered voice to say, well, hold on. It's probably not, especially if it's in the predictive side. So I think that's a good thing. It's worth reading for me, even though, as you're going to see, I'm not a huge fan of the rest of the book. But chapter 2,
All right.
are you ready to go to chapter 2?
Let's do it.
Okay, so chapter 2 is how predictive AI goes wrong. And really what they're going to do here is they're going to talk about a couple different ways that AI goes wrong. They think predictive AI falls short of what people say it can do. They think that over automation, people are using it to make too many automated decisions. They are specific in throwing out their thesis. that companies and governments have many misguided commercial or bureaucratic reasons for deploying predictive AI, but it's faulty, and that's causing systematic issues and systematic consequences. They throw a table in there that's the 5 reasons predictive AI fails. A good prediction can result in a bad decision. People can strategically game opaque AI. Users over rely on AI without adequate oversight or recourse. Data for training AI may come from different population. Predictive AI can increase inequality. Essentially, that's like what the whole chapter is. It's summarized in that table. So they wrote about all of that stuff and they summarized in that table. And the thing that gets me, and this is where I told you, like, I was good with the summary. Like, there was just too much in every one of those 5 sections, and I would just get bored, and I'd be like, okay, I get your point. Okay, I get your point. Okay, I get your point. And then we got to the summary table. I was like, man, if only you'd have given me this 30 pages ago, I'd have been probably happy, and I'd have been able to make it through much faster. So that's
It's a new example of telling someone what you're going to tell them, telling them, and telling them what you told them.
exactly. So that's chapter 2. How predictive AI goes wrong it's a big elaboration on those five points.
I think those 5 points are actually legit.
Agreed.
And the argument, if you just take those arguments and put them in sequential order, I think they can lead you down a path that maybe you haven't walked before. Like one of the things that I jotted down, which you mentioned, that when predictive AI systems are deployed, the first people they harm are usually minorities and those in poverty.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do with that? I'm not about to deploy a predictive AI system, so it's kind of just like a nice to know fact, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like be on your guard for this sort of thing. But the overall ideas that I think are going to stick with me from this chapter are the definition of an algorithm, which is a set of steps or rules used to make a decision. And then they define predictive AI as models used for decision making based on predictions about the future. The problem with that, if I were to try to summarize this based on the other notes that I've gathered here, is that AI tends to be good at making predictions if nothing else ever changes, but that's not the world that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
And so you should basically be skeptical of any of these claims. And the question you should be asking is, who was this AI tested on? I think later on they unpack that a little bit further and say that if you use it on just the data that it was tested on, it has limited value. Yeah. I think they're talking about generative AI with that, but I think it applies to this predictive AI as well. You have to recognize the biases that are inherent from the training data.
Yeah. I think we're going to highlight probably multiple times throughout this book. They said good things. I can't place it in the book at all. Like normally I can make like this little map that says, oh, it was this chapter, then they made this argument and they moved on from there. For this one, I have these ideas in my head. I was like, oh, that was a good point. I like that point. But if I didn't have my notes right in front of me, I have no idea where it was talked about in the book. Like it just doesn't flow.
Well, yeah. And that's why I made the comment about how I guess I just don't like academic books, because I feel like every sentence is useful but not exciting. And they're just one right after the other. And you get to the end of them and you're like, I probably heard some good things, but I don't care.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're writing a book to sell a bunch of copies, not to plant your flag in the ground on the ideas themselves, which I totally get. That's a valid use case for writing a book, building a Substack. We want to be known as the AI guys, right? Like you can do that. But I think the other approach to this, if you're trying to write a standard nonfiction book, you're working with an editor. It's like, how can we vary the sentence structure? How can we set things up? And we got this one banger sentence that's really just going to nail it home. And this is the thing that people are going to remember forever. They're just kind of like, yeah, the information's all there if you want it.
Yeah. I want to make, one of the things that stood out to me from the 5 failures of predictive AI was the hiring one, where they talked about the bookshelves in the background or like the random stuff that would make the person score high. And this just hurts my heart. And it's probably because I work with students all the time who are trying to go out there, get it. They're trying to get jobs. And And getting the callback from a human is the absolute hardest part of that process. And they all struggle
Mm,
with it. It doesn't matter how good they are. It doesn't matter what their GPA is. It doesn't matter anything like that. Getting that callback, because I'm seeing more and more of this. They submit their stuff. It goes through an automated process. They do a video interview that now I know. I didn't actually realize this at first, but now it goes through an automated screening. And there's, not causation, but correlation. It's like, oh, the people we score well tend to all have beautiful backgrounds, or their walls are white, or whatever it is. And it's like, that has nothing to do with
yeah.
the candidate. Absolutely. Like they were traveling, so they had to film in their hotel room, or, they were visiting family and they're in a weird space, but that will trigger the automated systems. And then I think what's scary about this is there's no human intervention, or it's unlikely that there's human intervention until something important enough arises that requires human intervention to come in. And I was like, man, we're just missing out so much on important things because we're kicking this stuff to predictive AI and to these models and these algorithms. And that made me hurt a little bit.
I agree. Well, they're based off of the data that the humans
Trained them.
feed them. And so it's not a surprise to me that the biases come over as
Yeah.
well.
Yep.
But
Okay. So now we go into chapter 3. And chapter 3 is why can't AI predict the future? I honestly, Mike, I don't remember much of this chapter, meaning like it was not something that really stood out to me in terms of we produce a lot of things. They went on this tirade about social media. This is kind of where they start with the social media stuff, and they start to get into that. Uh, I there was the Fragile Families Challenge, a notable large-scale study that tried to predict children's outcomes using AI and lots of data. There was this idea of data that came into here. I don't
can we talk about that Fragile Families predictive
absolutely,
thing real
because
quick?
nothing really jumped out at me. So I'm really glad you had something that jumped out.
Yeah. So, well, it's interesting to me because my dad has told me stories of his experience growing up. He went to a Catholic grade school, and this was like back in the day. So he was left-handed, and that was considered wrong. So like they tried to force him to write with his right hand. Like that's how far back in the day,
Oh wow.
right? But I remember him telling me because he is a business owner. He has a master's in assessment. He's successful by any stretch of the imagination. And he told me that when he was in middle school and high school, he didn't really care about school. It wasn't until he was starting to think about what he was going to do after school that he actually started caring. And there was this thing that back in the day called a predictor, which was essentially the range for the highest grade that you were able to get based on your previous performance. And so going into his senior year, he's like, I'm going to try because I really want to get into Marquette University in Milwaukee. And he's acing all of his classes, but they're like, well, your predictor says you can't get above a whatever. So that's the grade you're going to get. And he's like, what?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So he took the long road. He went to UWO first and crushed it there, and then got to Marquette. But I remember that, and I remember him telling me those stories, and me feeling like that is so incredibly wrong.
Yeah.
And we're basically repeating history, it sounds like, with this predictive
Yeah.
AI.
It's
Like if
worrying.
my dad were to read this, he would probably get visibly upset and like throw the book out the window. It was like, what is wrong with you people?
It's worrying, isn't it? I mean, when we came through school, because you and I aren't too far apart in age, do you remember that there would be like the honors track, and then there'd be like the normal track, and then there'd be the lower track, and you'd get tracked in like seventh grade or whatever it was, junior high, middle school, and it was really hard, if not impossible, to jump tracks. Once you were on a track, that was what you were going to do, and you were going to cap out at whatever math course and cap out at whatever English course. And at the time in high school, I never really thought about it. I was like, okay, whatever. That's what they told me to do, kind of a thing. But now I think about it from an educational standpoint, and I'm like, what a terrible, terrible way to do that. Because if you just have a really bad sixth and seventh grade year, or something happens in your family and it's just like you're really struggling socially or emotionally or whatever it
Yep.
is, you get tracked, and now essentially the next 10 years of your life are all figured out. I don't know. It just really rubs me the wrong way. And this brought up that, like you're saying, and I'm like, well, wonder how we're doing this now with predictive AI. Like, how many times have I been placed into a bucket by some predictive algorithm and not even known it, and had no clue that I'm capped at my ability to engage with your company or your organization or whatever it is, because I was automatically labeled and put in some bucket. It's wild.
Yeah, history repeats itself. But yeah, that's the big thing I had from this chapter. I don't know that I really got a solid answer for why AI can't predict
Yep.
the future.
I,
Um,
I would think
but
the closest thing I got to it was, where was it? Basically, it was about data, and it was the fact that, oh man, I'm trying to find it. It was the fact that it's only good on what it's trained on, and then,
sure.
man, there was another one here. I've lost it though. Oh, that
Well, there's another thing from here which I think is important based on like one of the fundamental reasons why AI can't predict the future. It's not the reason, but it's one of the things that goes into this. And I've actually heard some people that I look up to mention this too, that luck plays a larger role in success than most people
mm,
who are successful would care to admit.
yeah,
And the point that they make in this book is that luck plays a larger role in success than it does in failure. So you can do everything right and you can still fail.
yeah,
So if luck is a factor, you really can't build a model
yeah,
successfully off of that in in the aggregate I guess you can, because you can insert a certain amount of randomness to the system. But when you're trying to determine if this person is going to be able to do something, that's where all bets are off, I think.
yeah. You made me think of it. It was the idea of agency, luck, agency. This
Mm,
idea of we actually have agency as humans, and we are not completely predictive, or predictable, I guess, if you will. I mean, that isn't that the
sure.
isn't that the premise of? Have you seen the last Mission Impossible movies? Like,
I have not,
that's kind of
no.
the whole premise of the last Mission Impossible movies, is we aren't completely predictable humans. But I haven't seen the very last one, so
I predict they will continue to make Mission
right.
Impossible
Well,
movies.
as long as they keep making money, as long as they keep predicting they'll make money, right? All right,
Yep.
are you ready for chapter 4?
Yeah, this one I'm excited to talk about.
Me too. That's awesome that you and I are on the same page. Maybe it's bad for the show, but it's awesome that we're on the same page. Chapter 4 is the long road to generative AI. So I'm a big fan of thinking about generative AI. I like generative AI. I want to use it more and more every day. But they basically, for as hard as they go against predictive AI, they seem to be for generative AI. And they see the value of it, but they kind of temper with like, okay, well, how did it work, and where is it coming? Now they still will throw out ideas about we need to be careful of, we need to cautious on how where we're getting the data to train it. So they talk about the fact that there's the common crawl and scraping the entire internet and stealing basically everybody's thoughts and ideas and words, and then regurgitating those. They talk about how there are like organizations or advocacy groups that are trying to think about these things. Is this where they talked about, oh man, there was the letter, Mike, the big like letter they put out to all the AI people, and they had them sign it, that basically was like, we need to slow down, we need to really pump the brakes. And it was that this chapter.
That was the general AI, the existential threat one.
Okay. All right.
So that's next chapter. But this one's all about basically just using it for image generation, for text generation, and boy, do I have thoughts on
Okay.
this. Let me begin with a story. So a long time ago, we were working with a digital marketing agency. They were helping us with some blog posts. They put together these blog posts, published them on our site, and they used stock photos when they put together the blog posts. Um, we stopped working with the agency, And I think like 5, 6 years later, we're getting emails from Getty Images saying, you need to take this down right now, and we're suing you for $25,000 for each one of these posts,
Oh, wow.
unless you can provide the license for these images that you used. And we're like, well, the agency did it. Let me reach out to them. They, had an intern or something working on it, so they didn't have the receipts for the files that they had. So we were on the hook for it because we couldn't produce the license for the stock photo that we paid somebody who did it legit, but didn't have, the receipt trails. So not only is this extremely expensive from a financial perspective, but it's also a complete waste of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are literally companies, lawyers, firms, whatever. All they do is they scrape the web, they find these copyrighted images, and they go after people who maybe have used this incorrectly. And in our case, we did it correctly, but we didn't have the proof to show that we had done it correctly. So I guess, don't work with digital marketing agencies. Is that the solution?
No.
Like, no.
Yeah.
So I will be the first one to applaud the death of the stock photo industry.
Okay.
I apologize to every artist, every photographer, every videographer that's how they make their living. But I do not care at all for any of these stock photo video sites. They are a bunch of parasites, in my opinion, and they should be gotten rid of. The quicker that AI can do this, the better. Now, that's separate from the argument about they're trained on all this copyrighted material. And so, as a content creator myself, I understand that side of it too. I don't want people slurping up everything that I've ever written, everything that I've ever made, and just creating new stuff in my style, looks like me, sounds like me, and then using that to make money, which is essentially what these large language models are doing.
Yes.
It's trained on all this copyrighted data. So here's where I land on this. I do not think this is a battle that should be resolved with the AI companies. I don't think it should be resolved with the independent creators. I think the place to get it resolved where it actually is going to make a difference is in the courts. And the thing that sucks about this is how slow that system is to what is happening right now. Like, New York Times, I know, was suing OpenAI, I think, back in the day because they had slurped up a bunch of articles that were behind a paywall. Like, if we could just resolve that issue in a matter of weeks instead of years, then that sets a precedent. And then all these other models aren't just training on everything that they can find. At this point, it's almost like too late. It's all in there anyways.
Yeah.
You can't retroactively go back. So it sucks. But also that opens up another question, is like, where do we go from here? If you're an independent creator, I think you have to just accept that this is the world that we live in. The AI models are going to consume all of my stuff. And I can get mad at that and be like, no, I want this behind a paywall. Or I can actually think about, how could this actually be good for me?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there are benefits to this. I think it's kind of coming around where a lot of the AI models now will have the citations at the bottom of the thing that they spit back, because people don't just trust it when it gives them a blanket answer. They want to see where AI got this. I feel like that's kind of the natural evolution of this process. And so that's SEO 2.0 in a way. People are going to go look at my stuff that way, and it's not the same. I can get upset because it's not the same, or I could just be like, oh, this is the way it is. What are the advantages of doing things this way? Because I think there are some advantages to it as well. But end rant.
I can't disagree with you on anything you said. The thing that I think is really interesting about this is a lot of these companies are like, we're just going to do it because nobody's governing it right now and nobody's regulating it right now, and we'll deal with the court stuff on the back end. Oh, but by the way, we made so much progress, and we've become the household name, and we've become the brand that everybody goes to. That's like, yeah, we'll resolve that all later down the road, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to be first to market right now. We're trying to be the place that everybody goes. And I think
Yeah.
that's just the nature of kind of the, they say about the Wild West. That's the nature of the Wild West of AI right now is unless,
Unfortunately.
yeah, unless, and they have a whole chapter on this, which Mike and I are going to get to later, unless the regulators come in and try to get faster than them. But I don't even know if they can get faster than them with the way the system works and the way the courts work and all of that. I don't think you can do that. I think about this too. You talked about it from your creator business. I think about it from an education business as well, or for the education side as well. I'm up against the the AI tool, the LLM tool that's in every kid's pocket when they walk into my classroom. So instead of them asking me, the first place they'll go is they'll go to their AI tool and ask the AI tool, and then after that they'll ask me. But I can't tell you that I think that's a completely horrible, no good system. I think that one, I think it makes me overly important, right? Which I don't agree with that at all.
Mm.
It's more a matter of it just changes the way I teach. Like I have to teach in a different way and I have to present information in a different way. And I have to kind of lean into that and say, there's going to be some of this stuff that you're going to go to the AI tool and learn it through there because it's more efficient and it's faster and that's good. And then there's going to be some of the stuff you're going to engage with me with. Where I get
Yeah.
the one that actually makes me the most nervous, I think, is the audio video. And they talk about this towards the end of this is
Hmm.
how quickly and readily and well these tools can replicate your voice, and then how quickly and well they can actually physically make it look like you are doing something that you didn't do. And I think that is a very scary world until we figure out detection, and then we start playing the dance game of, well, we figured out better ways to detect it. Oh, they figured out better ways to trick that. Oh, we figured out better ways to detect it. They figured out better ways to trick it. And like once we get into that dance game, I actually think things level out a little bit. Because like you're really only gonna have the fringe, the front end of that be an issue. But right now, I think it can be an issue for anybody. Like we're still in that world where, I mean, Mike, somebody could make a video of you saying anything like crazy,
Yeah.
and there's really very little we can do to detect that other than you coming out and being like, that wasn't me. That's completely AI generated. And that's really the recourse you have at this point. And that's a scary world to me right now.
Dude, people are doing that intentionally. I was at Crafted Commerce this year. One of the sponsors was a company called Delphi, where you literally make an AI version of yourself.
Yeah.
They demoed on stage somebody like calling and getting workout advice from an Arnold Schwarzenegger AI voice bot, you know. So it is scary, and they talk about a little bit about the deep fake stuff and how that can be bad. But I also think that there are people who are just leaning into this
I know.
technology, be like, yeah, I don't care, I'll trick people. They'll think it's me. Not that they actually think it's, it's you. But I don't know. I the thing that to remember about all of this technology, I think, and we'll get into this, I think, as we go further down the book, is that these are tools and they have no intrinsic moral
Hmm.
value. They are not good. They are not bad. They can be used for both good and bad.
Yeah. Do you think they are? So what I would say, there's a book that we read in with my seniors every year, but there's an inherent bias and or an inherent value built into things. So we would say like they are value laden designs. And value laden designs, they're neither good nor bad. You can't say they're all one thing or all the other, but you can say that the way they were designed, they lean more one way or they lean more another way. So my question to you, Mike, putting
Mm,
you on the spot, would you say it's value laden in a way that it leans a different way? One of the ways or another.
no, because fundamentally what it does is it just tries to predict the next
Yeah.
thing in the chain.
Yeah.
So it needs data to be trained on, and the data, you can argue about whether that was sourced ethically. I would argue that it's not. Maybe it wasn't illegal, but it certainly wasn't ethical.
Agreed.
But that data now that is in there, the LLMs, the way that they function, they're just going to try and fill in the next blank. And it's going to use that, it's going to use tokens to do that. They mentioned a single token requires 1 quadrillion calculations, which is a million trillion, I think, or a million billion. I forget.
I'd have to think
I
hard about it.
1 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 calculations. And that's why they say the long road to generative AI, because those calculations, the computers have been a long time coming, and they keep getting more powerful, and they can do more of these calculations. And so this is kind of just like the next step in the chain for that. And the thing to recognize with these models is that they are trained to produce plausible text, not true statements. So you can't get mad at an LLM because it hallucinates, in my opinion. That's part of the deal. But hallucinations aren't all bad either. It's kind of interesting because I literally just did a talk at MacStock on AI.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I talked about using it as a creative collaborator. When you're in the creative process, you have a divergence of ideas where you consider all the options, and then a convergence when you bring it back together. During the divergence piece, I mean, that's where hallucinations can be good. You want to consider every off the wall possibility
Mm-hmm.
that you possibly can. But then at some point you have to be like, okay, I have what I need. Now I'm going to actually do something with it. So I honestly believe that this doesn't lean one way or the other. It's just a technological tool, just like a computer is a technological tool. And how you use it really is where the morality of the technology comes from.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Let's go on to 5 if you're ready.
Yes,
So
natural extension of what we were just talking
yep.
about, in my opinion.
So 5 is advanced AI an existential threat? They set up the argument here that a lot of people. So we get into the new term of artificial general intelligence now. So AGI. So they add more to it. But that they say a lot of experts in the field say that AGI is an imminent existential threat. They then immediately, or not immediately, but they unpack their argument that say we actually should be more worried about what people will do with AI than AI doing things on its own. Like they're not as worried about AI kind of running amok and doing things on its own. And they say that there are 2 options for safety. There's align AI with humanity's interests, and then stop powerful AI from being built at all. And they basically say, and neither of these are going to work because we've already either let the cat out of the bag or we already haven't aligned the AI, or whatever it is. So it's just really funny to me, like how, I don't even know how to explain it, how like, here's what we should do and here's the way we should address this, and none of that's going to work, so moving
Yep.
moving on. And it's just like a weird feel for the book. It's like very information based, not very story, or not very my opinion kind of a thing. I mean, I guess
Yep.
maybe they do give their opinion, but they give it in a very factual way, like in a very information based way, and it just reads very very differently. So they come in kind of at the very end of this, and they say, so how should we go about defending against bad actors who want to use it? Well, we can defend against their specific threats, or we can strengthen democracy. And like, I like all of this. These are all good ideas. And maybe this is where we need to be at this point in the discussion, in September of 2024 when they're writing this. But I kind of feel like we're just painting like gigantic broad strokes, and we're not getting to like things that can actually help people. So what should we do? We should defend
Yeah.
against specific threats. Okay, great. Great. Like cybersecurity? Great. Okay, fantastic. And then what should we do? We should strengthen democracy. Oh yeah, because that's easy, right? Like let's just strengthen democracy. Here we go. So I mean I know I'm being like kind of tongue in cheek as I talk about it, but I just get this feel for it that it's the point of this book isn't to, or it's not as much to solve problems. It's more a matter of to call out something that I think these authors don't think is being discussed enough in the industry and in the policy section surrounding the industry. So it's just a very different feel and a very different read for the book, at least for me, anyhow.
Yeah. So I had a maybe different perspective on this chapter, but I love this chapter, to be honest. So, artificial general intelligence, they define that as AI that can perform most or all economically relevant tasks as effectively as any human. And at that point, that's where they lay out the argument that most people have this Terminator style picture of AI once it gets beyond the capabilities of humans, but that's not necessarily the case. I kind of feel like that's irrelevant to the discussion,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of mentioned how that is probably very, very tiny chance of actually happening. Um, but you mentioned this when you were at the beginning of your introduction to this chapter. We should be far more worried about what humans will do with AI than what AI will do on its own. Going back to the previous chapter's discussion on like the morality of the tool. Okay. And then they say that we should assume that bad actors will have access to state of the art AI. I read a book back in the day called Tools and Weapons by Brad Smith,
Okay.
who was the president of Microsoft, forward by Bill Gates. And the subtitle of this book is The Promise and the Peril of the Digital Age. It was written in 2019. It came on my radar because Brad Smith was actually in Appleton, the town that I live, because he went to Appleton West, and Microsoft is actually invested in a local up in Green Bay. What do they call it? It's like an accelerator. Um, they call it Titletown Tech, basically, where they are investing in helping get technology companies funded
Yeah,
and,
like an incubator accelerator kind of thing. Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yes, exactly, in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this book, 2019. So this was before a lot of this AI stuff. But I remember he was in Appleton. He was giving a talk at the local college university. So I went and attended it, and there were a lot of questions and in that session about things that bad actors were trying to do with technology, because he's at Microsoft. They're trying to build all these crazy technological tools, right? So he's sharing stories about how, what's the term that he used? Dictator governments or something like that,
Okay.
examples of surveillance states and stuff like that. And he's like, they reach out to us all the time. They want us to unlock these things, for them. And we're just like, no, we're not going to do that. He's like,
Yeah.
this is a very fine line that you are trying to walk here, because on the one hand, like, the technology can save lives, it can improve people's existence, it can do a lot of good for humanity, but then you have to recognize that there are always people who are going to use it for nefarious purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like AI is simply that,
Yeah.
and yeah, maybe at some point it gains sentience and it enslaves humanity. I mean, that sounds ridiculous, but is it a possibility? Like, no one really knows
Yeah.
whether that could be or not, but it's also not worth worrying about. What you should be worrying about is how people are using the tools that are available now
Mm-hmm.
to steal your credit card numbers and ruin your life right now,
Yeah.
because they're actively trying to do that.
Yeah.
And figuring out what you can do to protect yourself in the digital culture that we live in. So yeah, if I were to just answer this, is advanced AI an existential threat? Question mark. I don't really care.
Yeah.
Not relevant, at least not right now.
So I listened to a couple different things. It was probably a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, around this, and there were people that were very much the way they described them, that saying AI is an existential threat. And in the talk, I mean, it was a podcast, and they were I don't know, 3 hours into the podcast or whatever, 2.5 hours, 3 hours in the podcast, and they were like, okay, there were like 4 or 5 things we can't do with AI. One was give it access to the internet. Two was teach it how to program. Yada, and they listed off, and they were like, and we've done them all. So yeah, and like that was kind of the end of the conversation. It was like, so we've already let the cat out of the bag. I mean, what are we gonna do now? But I agree with you in the sense of, I think we need to be thinking. Well, so I agree with you in the terms of we need to focus on what's happening right now. But I also do think we need to be thinking about, like, what is the general trajectory of where we're going, and do we like that general trajectory? I don't necessarily think we can fully define where it's going. Those would be futurists, people who think about this stuff professionally.
Yep.
But like, I think we just need to make sure we know where it's pointing, or where we think it's pointing, and be like, are we okay with that? Are we okay with it pointing that way? Because we have no idea, Mike, if in like a year some other company's going to come out and they're going to drop another bombshell, and like, I mean, it's going to take a hard left, and we're going to be like, oh no, we weren't ready for that at all. And that,
Correct.
yeah.
Correct. So they do mention at one point, I think it was in this chapter, about how, like, there was push for pausing the advancement of
Mm-hmm.
these large language models. I Okay, so is the cat out of the bag? Maybe, maybe not. I think we are still very, very early stages when it comes to what actually is AI and how
Mm-hmm.
does it get implemented into our lives. With AI, just like any technology, there's always a large rate of growth at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I had the link to the podcast that I had listened to that shared this, but basically that 6 month pause has come and gone.
Yeah.
And there's no GPT-5. Do you know why there's no GPT-5? It's because they're not getting the same rate of
Mm-hmm.
advancement. You can't just throw more compute power at this and get the same returns.
Yep.
So if they were to release GPT-5, then people are going to be like, meh.
Yep.
It's not that much better than the previous one. And so I think with large language models is probably, the tail end of the curve, and things are flattening out a little bit. And there will be something else that will come after that. But that's the way technology advances. It's not, surprising to me. And I kind of think you kind of don't know where this is going to end up. I think it's foolish to say, how do I say this? I don't want to say something that I'll regret.
I get it.
I personally though think it's a little bit foolish to say no, this is inherently bad, and we shouldn't touch this with a 39.5 foot pole.
Mm-hmm.
And instead we should be thinking about how do we actually do good with this. There's probably specific things where it's like, no, that's where I would draw the line.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see that with AI yet. I'm personally not comfortable with OpenAI and the other companies' goal of creating this artificial general intelligence. But I also think the fact that they want to do that is not make them, inherently evil.
Yeah.
And this is guaranteed doomsday. I don't know. I feel like the larger question to be asked, and really something that society needs to ask. So kind of like when I say don't worry about it, it's because me as an individual, what am I really able to, I cannot, Mike Schmitz, stop the AI avalanche.
Yep. Yeah.
So I'm not going to worry about that, but I am going to ask, how can I use the tools that are available to me to do more of what actually matters, to make a bigger impact, positive impact in the lives of the people around me. And I do think AI is useful for that.
Yeah. All right, you ready to go to social media, chapter 6?
Great segue into social media.
Yeah. Chapter 6 is why can't AI fix social media? I do not like the title of this chapter. I understand why they did it, but I don't like the title of the chapter because really I think this chapter is less about social media and it's more about content moderation. I think they should have called this the content moderation chapter because that's more accurate to what they're talking about. Now, granted, where does most content moderation happen? Probably on the internet right now. It happens in social media because there are currently humans that are paid a very, very low wage to sit there and look at content and flag it for whatever it needs to be flagged as. I personally think this is the worst job, or it was probably the worst job on the planet, right? One of the worst jobs on the planet. I mean, the filth that is thrown out there and just scours the internet, and your job all day is to identify and block and identify and shut down and identify and shut down. It's like it's akin to being the remote drone pilot in the military and like dealing with the psychological effects of that just in a different scale, right? Like, so I feel 100% for these people. It hurts me to think about that. Let's get to the idea of AI doing content moderation. Basically, their whole premise of this chapter is it can't do it. One, does it even translate it correctly? They're like, can it do that? Translation's gotten better, but can it translate it correctly? Two, humans are really good at getting around content moderation. There's nuance. They throw in different like phrases that say a certain thing without using the words that get flagged automatically. Like, so their whole point, I think, are around here how people evade this content. They throw out ideas about how people evade it. They give you examples of that. They talk about like algo speak, where you figure out how to speak in these algorithms that the algorithm then won't pick up, or these like pseudo algorithms, whatever it might be. Did you know of the Overton window before you read this chapter? Like, that was interesting to me. I'd never heard of the Overton window. So basically the Overton window is a horizontal scale from right to left, basically arrows on either side. And it goes from unthinkable radical, acceptable, popular, and then on the other side of that scale is the acceptable, radical, and unthinkable. And I just never heard of that, right? So that's a thing in the content moderation world. They give a table of the 7 reasons why content moderation is hard. I will spare you reading all of those. I think it's really interesting though. And then they tell you what, there's current limitations, there's inherent limitations, whether it's cost prohibitive or whether it's inherent to social media. I think there's a lot of really interesting things in this chapter, but like my overall idea is I think it kind of comes out of nowhere, right? Like, I just
Mhm.
don't know, like in the flow of everything, we just came from existential threat and now we go into content moderation. And it's like, okay. Cool. Like this is good. And I'm happy that we're talking about this, but where did it come from? So that's just kind of my general take on it.
Yeah. So I think I see how how we get there. I
Okay.
mean, one of the things that they mentioned earlier about bolstering democracy. So one of the arguments that you hear people make is, oh, the election was rigged because of all the Russian interference, and they actually share statistics that that really was not a thing.
Yeah.
But people think it was. So hard to argue with what people think in their heads because the internet is a grocery store for facts, and you
Yep.
can find whatever facts you want to support whatever crackpot beliefs you want to hold.
Yes, you can. Yes, you
And I'm not saying that that one specifically, although maybe, is it it's been proven otherwise. Anyways, um, so like I think it's interesting to go from is AI an existential threat to social media, because that's the argument I think is like what appears on social media influences society. And I think it influences individuals much more than it does societies as a whole. I guess you could say that that stuff in aggregate, has an effect, but I would be more concerned about what the content that the algorithm is surfacing to any individual is causing to that person than I would be, the election is actually being rigged because of
hmm
Russian troll farms, the term that they used in this particular chapter. So I think this is an interesting problem without a good solution. You mentioned that it's been done by humans and that job kind of sucks. And I think I would agree with that. But also, content moderation in general is sort of something I feel like social networks do because they have to, not because they actually care and not
Absolutely.
because they want to. It's in direct contrast to their business interests
hmm
because they share in here the that content that is closer to violating content moderation policies is actually more likely to be engaged with.
hmm
So that creates this incentive to get it as close to the edge as you
Yep.
can without it going over.
Yep.
So if they were really concerned about this, the closer that it got to that point, the more they would moderate it, the more they would clamp down on it. And the demand curve would not, trickle up at that point. It would be flattened at that point. It's like, you're getting to a point where this is dangerous. Now, people in the US don't like that because of the First Amendment. And that's kind of the argument that people always have is like, well, I can say whatever the heck I want. I think with social media, you should not be able to say whatever the
Yeah.
heck you want.
I agree.
I think you want to go out into the streets and yell in a megaphone, go ahead and say whatever the heck you want. But when you are using these tools that give people platforms, I think there does need to be some sort of moderation on this. Um, I so yeah, I get why AI isn't able to fix this, because even if it was doing what the jobs of the humans were doing, it's not able to do it perfectly, and it's gonna have all of the biases that are inherent with the things that they're trying to moderate. So the real problem with social media is the algorithms, in my opinion.
And the humans.
I'm not. Yeah, yeah. I'm not a fan of algorithm based social media. Now, I need to temper that because I have also said that YouTube is the one quote unquote social media platform that I uh, I like to engage on, and that is because as a creator who's trying to build a business, I feel like YouTube is the one where I can reach the people that I want to reach, and I can have a positive impact if that's what I want to do with my videos, which is in fact what I want to do with my videos. and the algorithm is going to help the people who want to see what I make.
Yeah.
It's going to help me get in front of them. It's going to help us get connected, and so it's going to help my channel grow. But in the back of my mind is this existential threat for my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
They mentioned that you get 3 copyright strikes, which is automated based on the AI. Then your YouTube channel gets banned. And I know a lot of people who have succumbed to that. Not, they fell into it like it was their fault or anything, but just for whatever reason, YouTube decided, you use copyrighted material, and they don't have there's no one at YouTube that they can reach out to argue with. And so, like that's kind of scary. But overall, recognize what these algorithms are doing to you. They're trying to feed you more and more extreme content to get you more and more emotionally invested, usually negatively, get you more upset, so that you continue to scroll, so that you continue to engage with the platform. You don't put the phone down and take the tech-free week that Cory and I talked about in the pro show.
Yep.
And there's a great documentary, The Social Dilemma, which is older now, but I think speaks to this very clearly. And I'm not one who would say, just don't use social media, but do use it intentionally and go into it with your eyes open.
Yeah.
These aren't benevolent dictators who are, looking out for you because they have a digital well-being feature, or they're investing all this money in content moderation. No, they're doing that because it is literally the bare minimum that they can do to not be held responsible for what happens on their platforms.
Exactly. I'm going to make a prediction here, Mike, and I'm intrigued to see if this comes true. Hold me accountable to it if your memory serves you so well. I think AI and automated content generation is going to destroy social media, and I think it's going to push us into, I think you're already starting to see it. It's going to push us more into communities where there is more moderation, but it's appropriate moderation, and we choose to be involved in that. So for instance, I want to be, in the productivity space. Like I want to learn about that, where I used to go to all of the social media platforms and I would follow the creators that I wanted to follow. Well, now I join the 4 or 5 creators that I really want to be part of their communities, and that's where I get those things. And I don't worry about the broader, completely, well, not completely, but 90% automated, social media stuff anymore. It's just not, there's, as you would say, because you like to say this, there's too much noise and not enough signal. So I'm going to put myself in the place where there's more signal and less noise. I think we're going to see that continue to increase over the next 5-10 years.
I mean, I hope so, because I'm building a community. Yeah. So.
Yeah. But I think you've already seen it. Like I think you've already seen people who are willing to do that. They're willing to join, invest, whether it's invest in time, attention, money, whatever it is. They're willing to do that to get out of that environment that's just so noisy, and that every second, third, fifth, 10th thing that you're seeing is just completely artificial and made up. So hopefully that's true. I think it would make a better internet.
Agreed.
All right, chapter 7, why do myths about AI persist? So in chapter 7, we get into this idea of hype. There are major sources of hype. There are companies, researchers, journalists, public figures. They basically are very aggressive. The authors are very aggressive in saying how they exploit cognitive biases to misinform the public. And I was like, wow, that's a stance. They showed this Gartner hype cycle, which I had heard of this before, but I'd never seen it graphed out before. So if you're listening to us, there's visibility on the y-axis, there's time on the x-axis. The new technology happens, and you get this peak upward. It's not perfectly straight, but it's a peak upward, and that's when there's all these inflated expectations. AI is going to save the world. AI is going to do this thing, and it's going to make you not have to do your job, and you're only going to have to work 10 hours a week, and all this stuff. And then you get into the trough of disillusionment, so you go down hard. You get to the slope of enlightenment, which is basically where like everybody's like, calm down. Let's figure out what this thing will actually do. And then you get to the plateau of productivity. And they're saying that technologies go through this Gartner hype cycle. So they're making a claim that AI is in this hype cycle. Although they say it's not a good way to track the adoption and usefulness of AI because it actually doesn't work that well. So I think it's really interesting. They present this Gartner hype cycle to try to explain it to us, and they're basically like, but wait, it actually doesn't work that well. So I was kind of taken back as I'm reading this. I was like, well, you just presented this hype cycle, and then you just told me that it doesn't really work. Anyhow, so I don't really know what to do with that. I don't know if you wanna go anywhere with that. Do you have thoughts on it or?
Well, I think the hype cycle is important to understand. I don't know that I have a whole lot to discuss about this. The one thing that stood out to me from this chapter was that the difference between the crypto hype and the AI hype is socially beneficial uses, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, yeah,
Basically said that there are no socially beneficial uses for the,
for the
the
crypto.
crypto hype. Yeah, but AI hype, I agree that it can be socially beneficial, but also, yeah, recognize that there's a bunch of uh, really big companies that are funding this hype.
Yeah.
I also thought it was interesting the curve that you mentioned. How it goes back and forth between winters and springs.
Mm-hmm.
There's not just one winter, there's not just one spring, but it's constantly fluctuating. I think that's kind of interesting. Yeah, I don't know that I have really any big takeaway from this other than don't believe the hype and don't believe the news sources when they talk about AI.
Yeah.
Recognize where the hype is coming from. It mentioned that AI research relies on corporate funding, so literally the people who are paying for all of the research being done on the effectiveness of all this stuff are the people who are trying to sell it.
Yeah. It's
Regardless of the name OpenAI, it's not a nonprofit organization.
it, it,
It's a
it
for-profit company.
it reminds me a lot of like the nutrition industry, to where a lot of the nutrition research that gets done are by the companies that want to sell you the latest protein or the latest, weight loss or whatever it might be. And it's really interesting to me that like that popped into my head about these two, kind of connections. It's like, oh, we found this new thing and it's going to revolutionize whatever it might be. And is it really? And do we take a tempered step back and do we let that play itself out? I I think it's really interesting that time, it seems to be a factor here that they didn't really bring up. But like if we just wait a little bit and don't like go crazy, it'll pan out. We'll know how things are gonna work out or what's gonna stay around and what's not. Now the people who invested in Bitcoin and at $1 and it went up to 50 whatever, however many thousands of dollars, they're like, oh yeah, but if you'd have waited, it's like, yeah, but you're like the 1% of people who made money on it. Like the other 99% of people lost their shirt on that. So I think it's really, I think it's an interesting chapter to think about hype and think about the way the media and the popular figures and the researchers and these companies all play into this. They state their take-home message here: results from AI-based science should be treated with extreme caution. So be aware, be careful of that. They say the most important questions about AI aren't about the internals. They're not about the way it works and how efficiently it works and any of that stuff. It's really more about the ethics and the use cases and those type of things, policies around them. So I mean, I think it's an interesting chapter. They hit biases again here, which I feel like this is like the 10th time they've hit these cognitive biases. It's been all through the
So
book.
many
Yeah.
biases.
Yep. So I don't really know if I have much else on this chapter, so I'm ready to move if you are.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. All right. So the eighth and final chapter. Where do we go from here? So this is their kind of launch off, trying to wrap up the book. So they started with the introduction to lay the foundation of essentially predictive AI bad, and then they've unpacked some things, and now where do we go? They're going to say that generative AI is going to continue to improve. Chat GPT, educators. They introduced this idea of partial lotteries, which, Mike, I'd never thought about this, but this is a really interesting concept. So essentially, if you meet a bar, you're then entered into a lottery, and the rest of the decision making isn't trying to be predictive. It's just putting you in the lottery and said you met the bar. Here you go. And then from there, it'll let down people's cognitive. I want to say cognitive intensity, but that's not right. Like my attachment to like, oh, there's something wrong with me because I didn't make it into the club or the university or whatever it might be. It's like, no, I hit the bar and the lottery weeded me out. And okay, so they make this idea that these partial lotteries could help. What else coming out of here? Regulatory capture. This idea that the companies are going to continue to try to influence lobbying and influence regulations. So they're gonna keep playing into that, and we need to think about how that happens. Regulation was a big part of this chapter because they
Oh yeah.
they are pro regulation. They think we need to be regulating this. That more regulation is better, not less regulation. What else? What else did you get out of this one, Mike?
Which I think is true, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
but that's a that's a tricky thing to unpack. Yeah, so this last chapter, they have the two worlds that they describe between the
Yeah,
two people at the end, which
Kai
is kind of
and Maya.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's interesting to me because it's kind of, if we're going to really clamp down and we're going to be scared of AI versus we're going to just embrace it and figure out how to use it. Rachel is struggling with this right now with her Classical Conversations campus. She's a director this year, and someone floated the idea of having in the policy handbook, statement about AI, and then she was gone for something for a couple of days, so didn't respond right away, and someone tried to jump in and create an AI statement to add to the handbook, and I was like, I disagree with every word of this.
Okay. Okay. Yep.
And they're basically just saying like completely, cut it out. You can't use it at all. And that's, one of the worlds. And then the other one, which is painted a lot more positively, is the one that's, let's figure out what to do with this. I don't know. That's a effective way to end it. I think it illustrates their point, which is really you don't need to be scared of this stuff. One of the interesting facts that they shared here, which, I guess I'd have to look at the one of many citations they have, but behind the things that they added in this book, but they mentioned that the only job category to be completely replaced by technology was the elevator operator,
Yep. Yep.
which kind of tempers the fears about AI causing massive joblessness. They mentioned that while AI will impact many jobs, the fears of massive joblessness are overblown. And I think they're probably right about that. I think it's real hard from a bookworm perspective to grab onto something specific that you're going to do
Agreed.
as a result of this last chapter or even this book.
Agreed.
um, but it's good information, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. Right. I was thinking about where we're gonna go in the next part of the conversation. I was like action items. I was like I don't have any action items, but we'll get there. We'll get there later.
Yeah. Oh,
You.
one other thing. They did mention that generative AI will fade into the background, meaning we'll use it all the time, not just for specific tasks. I think that's true. And so that's the thing specifically with the statement in the student handbook about you can't use
Mhm.
AI because you're probably cheating. I don't Yes, you can use it for creating a report, and
Mhm.
you'll get a bad grade on it, whatever, because it's not very good. And AI tools are going to continue to get better, but I think this is going to become part of everyday life. And so we really need to figure out where to use this appropriately
Yeah.
and productively. And I don't have a simple answer for this. I think if you were to try to lay something out, honestly, this is where you really have no idea. You
Yeah.
can't predict the future and how this is going to change and improve and what it's going to next version of this is going to look like. But it is something that we need to pay attention to.
Yeah. I think I don't want to go too hard on my educator wing of my life. They make a statement here that tools for detecting AI generated text don't work, and that basically it leads to false accusations. And you talked about that, saying people were cheating when they really weren't. It gets really, I don't know. I think we lose the forest through the trees when we try to get too intense about this, right? I mean, students are going to use it. Like they're going to want to use it because it's a very effective tool to increase efficiency, but at the same time, we have to still teach them the core things that we have to teach them. So it's a really big balance, and I don't know if we know the answer to it. I don't know if we're going to know the answer to it. I think we're going to have to feel this out over time. Uh, I I don't know where to go. Like that's you had mentioned it, Mike. That's like I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go other than it's hard and we need to keep thinking about it and regulation needs to happen, but companies are going to keep trying to skirt the regulation. And it's like you get into this mind spiral of, okay, I just ran on a treadmill, but I got nowhere. So what do I do? What do I do with this? So that's my end of the book. That's my kind of wrap up. I don't know if you have anything else you want to say before we move to action items.
Nah, let's do action items.
Okay. Oh, there is one more. There is one more thing. You had said
Okay.
about the jobs disappearing. I had always heard and had always been told, oh, radiologists are gone, right? Like radiologists are gone. And they were like super clear on the fact that radiologists aren't going away. Everybody thinks radiologists are going away. Radiologists aren't going away. And I was like, well, I was wrong. And everybody that I've ever listened to say that was wrong. So I knew there was one other thing I wanted to mention. All right, now we'll move into action items. I will start off, Mike. So hopefully, if you are in the same boat as I am, you don't feel bad. I have 0 action items, and I don't even feel bad about it. Like I thought hard. I considered. There are no action items that come out of this book for me. I'm glad I read it, but there are no action items. Done.
Likewise, yeah. I don't even think this book was written in a way that they wanted you to actually do something with it.
Yep. Yeah.
It was just, here's the information, here's all the citations. Hopefully we get tenure.
Yeah. The closest action item I would have is that reference is kind of interesting. Maybe I should go find it, but it was too hard to then you had to go search for it. And I was like, nah, I'm done. I'm done.
There were a couple of those I tried to look up, but the content that they're like, one of them specifically was a New York Times article, and I tried to access it, and it's behind a paywall. And like, okay, fine, I won't.
Yeah.
I won't look at this article.
Yep, exactly.
I hate it when people do that.
All right, so let's move on to style and rating with 0 action items. Mike, is that a bookworm first? Have you ever had a book where there are 0 action items coming out of the book?
Good question. I know that there have been books where I've had no action items, but I don't know that there's been a double no action item book.
Yeah, I think that's a sign of what we're going to talk about now in style and rating. So style and rating, I will start. It is my book. Mike, the rating on this one's hard. I mean, it provided information and what I think is good information. It told a story that you don't often hear. It told a data-driven story that you don't often hear. They have analyzed it well. I trust their thought process through things and their experience through things and the fact that they've researched and they've thought critically about these things. I liked all of that. I feel as though I am more well-rounded in my understanding of AI. I feel as though I understand some of the technical pieces better. I definitely have a better perspective on the biases and the potential implications of things. I didn't care for the book very much at all. If the information wouldn't have been really good, I mean, this would maybe be in like the 1 territory for me. So the fact that the information is pretty good, and I feel like I don't feel like I wasted my time. So I want to make sure that that's clear. Like I don't feel like I wasted my time reading the book. I do feel a little bad for the bookworm audience if they read along with us, because I was like, man, if they weren't into the AI scene, I mean, this was a really tough read, and they probably stopped at some point through this. So I'm trying to get to my rating, and I'm trying to debate whether I think it's a 2 or a 3. I don't want to do a half. I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to rank it a 3, even though my gut kind of feels like it's a 2. But I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt because it did have good information that I think rounded out my picture of AI and predictive AI in the industry. So I'm going to rank this a 3. Mike, what's yours?
All right. Well, okay. So I actually, I think I like the book maybe better than you did. I don't have a ton of notes from this book because I quickly gave up trying to keep up with every single argument that they were making and just relied on the things that actually resonated. And there were, definitely some things from things that they shared that triggered some other things, which led to great conversation. I don't think this book in isolation is great, but I do think it is good. And
Okay.
I think the arguments that they make are effective. I think I kind of wish they would have skipped chapters 2 and 3 altogether
Okay.
and just said, trust us, predictive AI isn't the thing right now. We'll revisit this in the future.
Okay.
I don't, so I really don't care about the vendetta that they have against predictive AI, to be
Yeah.
honest. So the AI snake oil, like, I don't like that framing. I don't like that um, perspective necessarily, but I did enjoy several of the chapters specifically, and I think they have some interesting things to add to the conversation. And I definitely walk out of this with a better understanding, not just because of the arguments in this book, but they fit in alongside the other things that I'm aware of that are happening in the AI space and the other books that we've read on AI in general. So, like, I'm trying to separate this between like in an isolation read and the Mortimer Adler,
Mm-hmm.
how does this contribute?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that way it's actually more valuable. So definitely not a 5-star book, but maybe a 4-star book. The thing that's going to keep me from giving it 4 stars, though, is I don't think this ages very well.
Okay.
This book was good right now as we read it in July, August of 2025. By the time January 1st, 2026 comes, I really think there are going to be parts of this that are completely out of date, where not just, oh, that's old information, but no, it's changed since
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily their fault, but that's just my own feel for where things are at currently with AI.
Yeah.
I was listening to there's a podcast called AI and I by Dan Shipper. He's the one of the people behind Every.2,
Okay.
and they're the ones that I think are one of the better voices to listen to right now in terms of like where our AI is and where it's going. And there was an episode that I listened to. I can't remember who it was with. He was interviewing somebody, and they've worked with AI, and they were at Stripe and Google and all these different places. And at the end of the episode, they mentioned that they made a comment about how people think that where we're at right now with the LLMs is the end game. He's like, this isn't even the end of the first inning.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, this is going to change so incredibly much. People have no idea. And I feel like just the whole snake oil perspective is sort of putting a stamp on, yeah, it can't ever do that. It can't do that right now. And I think they would probably admit that. But I don't believe that we're at a point where the predictive AI stuff is just never, ever, 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 ever going to work, regardless of how much they leaned into this about why can't AI predict the future. You give something enough data, it's going to be useful enough in some situations. And we're not there yet, but I think we will be. So I'm going to give this 3 stars just because I don't want to come back to this rating a year from now and be like, yeah, no.
Yeah. Yeah. You make a really, really good point in terms of what it made me think of is this book's it's a dangerous book to write. Right now, you plant your flag really well, and you can get kind of popular with that. But if in 2026 everybody looks back and they're like, "Hey, do you remember when those two guys wrote that book and how wrong they were, like about all this?" And it's like that's a dangerous thing. Like you don't know if that's going to happen or not. And that's what when you were describing your perspective on it or your view on it, it's like, wow, I didn't think about. It's good for now. It seems to have gotten popularity right now. Hopefully that stays true. Or now the other option is you look back on it and you're like, look how right they were. Look how right they were the
Yep.
entire time.
Yep.
And it's just it's a risk. I mean, you're putting your flag in the ground and we see where it goes. So
Which is not to say that they should not have written this book or they should not have taken that approach. It's just not the one that I would have chosen to read from a bookworm perspective.
Yeah.
I think as academics, they have alternate goals with publishing their thoughts, beliefs,
without a doubt,
research around these things, which isn't, how do we make the best, most informative book for a bookworm listener who's coming to this and they want to know, how they can actually use AI in a positive way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it was a great conversation. I think it, one of my probably one of my more it's got to be up there in terms of like my favorite conversations that we've
Mhm.
had, just because there were so many topics in here where it's like I have very strong
Yeah.
opinions and feelings about
Yep.
this.
Yep.
So hopefully it was entertaining for the listeners. But yeah, that's the thing that causes me to say that. And you're right, maybe come back to this and all those arguments hold up, but I kind of have this feeling that it's not going to age well, and that's not their fault, but it's going to weigh into my decision.
Got it. All right, so let's put AI snake oil on the shelf. What's next, Mike?
Next is From Strength to Strength by Arthur Brooks, which I have a couple of copies of. So if you really need one, I could send you one. I bought this and then my brother gave it to me for Christmas, I think. And it's been on my list for a while. Looks really interesting. And I'm looking forward to going through this one with you.
Nice. After that, we're going to do The Science of Scaling. It's a business book by Benjamin Hardy and Blake Erickson. So I'm looking forward to that one. It's a new one that comes out according to Amazon tomorrow. So it's a brand new one on scaling your business.
Well, tomorrow as we record this.
Yeah, tomorrow as we
Most
record it.
people who are
Yeah,
listening to this,
it will
it's
be out.
available. So
Yes. Yes, tomorrow as we record. Yep. Mike, do you have any Gap books right now?
Good question. I don't think yeah, I didn't put anything in here, but I actually do have one that I want to read. I picked this book up in person at Craft and Commerce last year. I have been kicking around the idea of doing a coaching program, and John Meese is basically the guy for setting this up, and he wrote a book called Serve to Sell, and he gave it away at Craft and Commerce last year. So I have a copy of it. It's fairly short, and I'm going to try and get that one done before From Strength to Strength, although that one has a little bit shorter window because we will actually be recording that one in person. So
Yes, we will be recording in person, which is going to be an exciting adventure for us. Although Mike understands how to
yeah,
record in person, so I feel good about that.
yeah.
Yeah. Mine is the same as it was before. I kind of got into this AI book and then didn't have tech for the week, so I didn't have my nose in anything else. But I'm gonna finish Scrolling Ourselves to Death, which is a book about technology and Christianity and the impact there, the intersection there. So that's the one I'm gonna finish as my Gap book before Strength to Strength.
Nice.
Alrighty, well, thank you all very much for listening. If you are interested in more content that we make, we do a pro show. It's a longer ad-free show. You also will get the bootleg version of the show, which releases fairly quickly after recording. Usually get it about a week or two early. There's a live stream, so if you become a pro member, you can get access to the live stream through Patreon. We have a wallpaper there. It's $7 a month, and it just helps us with the admin costs to run the show. So for all the Patreon members, we thank you so much for being Patreon members. For anybody who's interested in kind of getting the perks and just supporting the show, we really would appreciate it if you do that. If you go to patreon.com/bookwormfm.
All right. If you are reading along with us, pick up From Strength to Strength by Arthur Brooks, and we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks. All right. Nicely done.
Live stream, thank you so much. We appreciate you. We're going away.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.